Hey everyone, in this video I will be talking about the major developments in the transportation revolution of the early 19th century of America. I'll highlight three big changes that occurred during those times, especially when it comes to the roads and the canals and the railroads, um, and which we all share, and how it also continues to help shape our country as it is today, and compare those systems. Um, In the early 1800s, the U.S. was expanding westward, but traveling across the country was slow and difficult and definitely unreliable. But as we read, the transportation revolution changed all that. It introduced new ways to move people and goods at a much faster pace, and which helped fuel the economy and connect communities across long distances and different states. One of the first big uh, changes and developments was the roads. This is one of the major first project, and it was called the Cumberland Road, also called the National Road, which constructed in I think 1811, and it stretched from Maryland westward across the Appalachians into Ohio and beyond that. This was the first federally funded road, and it made travel much easier for settlers, merchants, and even soldiers. But before this, most roads were muddy and poorly maintained. So the Cumberland Road gave Americans a direct, durable route across the country and was a big step in uniting the eastern cities with the western frontier. The next major development was the canals, right? Water travel was much cheaper than moving goods over land. So canals became a game changer for the transportation system. The most famous one is the Erie Canal. It connected Lake Erie to the Hudson River and allowed goods from the Midwest to reach cities like New York and also international markets. Canals also cut transportation costs and turned small towns into booming trade centers. They also help farmers in the West send crops to the East more easily, create stronger links between rural and urban, economies, which is a plus. But then came the railroads. This definitely revolutionized transportation even more. I think starting in the 1830s, trains began to replace canals and roads at a faster and more flexible way. It definitely made it easier to travel. But railroads didn't depend on rivers or flat land. They could run in all seasons. They weren't limited by that. They expanded pretty fast at that, and especially by the Civil War, thousands of miles of tracks covered a good amount of major cities and small towns, and it made it possible for us to ship or travel, across hundreds of miles in just a matter of days. So as we compare that history to today's transportation, the differences are clear. Modern travel nowadays are faster, safer, and expand even further globally. And we now have interstate highways, commercial airlines, subways, freight trains, and GPS systems that guide us in real time. So what normally took weeks in the 1800s now take just hours to get to a certain destination. But what's interesting is that the purpose hasn't changed really. Back then, the goals was to connect people. Sell merchant goods and ideas, right? And that's still the goal today in our modern age, right? The Cumberland Road, the Erie Canal, and the early railroads, set the foundation for the national transportation system that we really rely on to this day, and we continue to build upon. But in short, the transportation revolution changed the way Americans lived, worked, and traveled. Roads like the Cumberland Road helped people head west. Canals like the Erie made trade faster and cheaper. And the railroads tied it all together with speed and power. But together, these developments transformed the U.S. into a more connected and mobile nation, just like the systems we continue, right, to build and further enhance our ability to travel and make connections and trade. So that is that, thanks for watching, and I hope this gave you a clear look at how transportation shaped America's past and still shaped us today and the future. Thank you.